Tonight, Senate moves to curb fraudulent transactions in federal government ministries, agencies and departments, threatens to expose those refusing to account for public funds. Former Central Bank Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo emerges candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance in the November 6th governorship election in Anambra State. Court fixes July the 2nd to adopt all processes filed by parties in a suit by former Abia State Governor Ojuzo Kalu seeking to stop his retrial. And leaders of the 16-nation Southern African Development Community agree to deploy troops to help Mozambique combat terrorism and acts of violent extremism. Plus, business, sports, news from Abuja, and later, international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Africa Development Bank launches debt action and economic governance plan to forestall debt crisis for African economies.
On sports news tonight, Tokyo marks 1 month until the start of the Olympic Games as organizers set out measures amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
And from Abuja, Minister of Niger Delta Affairs says a report of the forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission will be presented to the President by the end of July.
The Senate is threatening to publish the names of government ministries, departments and agencies who failed to appear before its Public Accounts Committee to defend queries issued by the Auditor General of the Federation. President of Senate Ahmed Lawan issued a threat today after the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee submitted the annual report of the Auditor General of the Federation on the accounts of the Federation for the year ended 31st December 2015. Some of the infractions in the report observed by the committee include withdrawal of funds from special fund accounts for purposes other than the objectives for which the funds were created. Our correspondent Linda Tigre reports.
For more than 4 months, the Senate Public Accounts Committee has been inviting heads of government agencies to respond to queries on financial infractions and mismanagement of funds detailed in the 2015 audit report prepared by the Auditor General of the Federation. The committee has concluded the first part of its engagement with the MDAs, and the chairman presents the report on its findings during Wednesday's plenary session.
Such attitude of interagency lack of cooperation constitute a barrier to efficient.
In the report, queries on financial violations issued against 59 of the agencies by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation were sustained, while those against 46 other agencies were vacated. Notable among the agencies whose queries were sustained include the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Nigerian Army, and the Nigerian Ports Authority.
In the course of the consultation of the Auditor General's report, the committee observed and noted issues that warrant urgent parliamentary and executive attention. Consistent contravention of relevant constitutional provisions and non-extant laws by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Prevalence of unwholesome financial practices by some principal revenue agencies which have negative implications on the revenue generation efforts of government.
However, 7 agencies listed in the report did not respond to a series of invitations sent to them to defend their queries.
This Senate will publish the names of these agencies for the public to know. This Senate will insist any public servant or civil servant that is given the public fund for public good and has questions to answer and refuse to appear to answer should have no business being in government.
A report of this magnitude, which details financial infractions by several government agencies, is not one the Senate intends to rush through, and lawmakers have been issued copies of the report to examine and make contributions on a later date. Meanwhile, the Senate is passing the 895.8 billion naira supplementary budget through second reading. The Committee on Appropriation will work on the budget and report back to the Senate. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, staying with the upper chambers, they've also been reacting to reports on the roof leakages in the foyer of the National Assembly complex, with clarifications that no money was released for the renovation of the building. President of Senate Ahmed Lawan says the National Assembly and its leadership are not responsible for the maintenance and renovation of the complex, and they have not received any amount for the renovation.
The fact that there was a leakage, to me, is a clear testimony, confirmation, and vindication of the position the National Assembly took initially. By the time we came into office, by the grace of God and your endorsement, the Speaker and I found it necessary to go around this complex, and we found out dilapidation and degradation. In fact, anyone who sees what we have here knows that this place is overdue for rehabilitation. It's even worse downstairs. So we went to see Mr. President to complain to him that there's need to rehabilitate and renovate the National Assembly complex after being used for about 20 years and not rehabilitated at all. And Mr. President was gracious. He asked us to come back, engage the FCDA, who are the owners of this building. They continued to work and work until they came down to that 7 billion. And I took that to Mr. President. Mr. President immediately called the late Chief of Staff of blessed memory, Mala Bakiari. He said, go and look for money to rehabilitate the National Assembly complex. When we approved the budget of 37 billion naira for the rehabilitation of this complex, it was not a National Assembly budget. It was an FCDA budget. We have nothing to do with this.
Away from the National Assembly, the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has emerged the flag bearer for the All Progressives Grand Alliance Party, APGA, ahead of the forthcoming governorship elections slated for November the 6th. Professor Soludo defeated 4 other aspirants, Chukwuma Umeoji, Okudili Ezenwankwo, Damian Okolo, and Nicholas Ukachukwu to emerge winner of the governorship ticket. Vote counting soon began after 795 accredited delegates lined up to choose their candidates.
18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Clear winner emerges as the party announced the winner, handing him a certificate of return. Well, beginning his speech on a note of appreciation for the overwhelming support after claiming over 90% of the votes cast, Mr. Soludo, former governor of the Central Bank, says it's time for him to give back to the people.
Yes, the victory is overwhelming, over 93–94% of the votes cast. Even if you assume that all the votes got by the other aspirants were from the statutory delegates, who still won by over 80%, even if the entire thing was done by only statutory delegates, we still won by over 80%. And this is an overwhelming mandate. I then crave the indulgence of my brothers. Let's come together. Apuga is such a large tent. There is enough room for everybody to contribute. To the millions of Anambra, I say this is your moment, seize it. The November election is a very consequential election for the state. It will determine in which direction and speed of our march towards progress or retrogression. We are a unique state, richly blessed with exceptionally productive human capital scattered all over the world, but struggling to build a livable and prosperous homeland. Past governors tried their best. Governor Mbadnoju, I always try to remind us, established the Anambra State University. Governor Ngige built several strategic roads. why Governor Peter Obi, as an APGA governor, built even more roads and in compliance with APGA manifesto, touched several other sectors and also did well as an APGA governor. Our current governor and leader of APGA has taken it to the next level by combining both the micro and macro dimensions of governance. Has given us the unprecedented security, light up Anambra, 17 bridges and several roads and infrastructure development, community choose your project, cargo, and very fundamentally the institutionalization of governance at all levels.
And the INEC recognized leadership of the All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA, led by Chief Victor Oye, has been reacting to the purported suspension of Professor Charles Soludo and 3 others from the party. Chief Oye says the party is not in any crisis and the move is an antic by detractors who know that APGA is the party to beat. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress has also inaugurated its committee ahead of its governorship primaries in Anambra State. The committee is to be headed by Governor Dakwa Abiodun of Ogun State with 6 other members. The 7-member committee is expected to conduct the primary election to elect the party's candidate for the governorship election for Anambra State in line with the provisions of the party's constitution and guidelines for nomination of candidates. The State Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party in Delta State has suspended the senator representing Delta North in the National Assembly, Senator Peter Nwobushi, for 1 month. The party says the action has become necessary against the backdrop of the recent romance with an opposition party, alleged verbal recklessness and unprovoked utterances of the lawmaker, particularly against the person of Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, which the PDP State Working Committee views strongly as totally unacceptable, disturbing and unbecoming of a politician and party member. The party says the attacks by Senator Nwobushi are potentially inimical to the peace and harmony of the party and tantamount to causing discord and disaffection among loyal party members. Meanwhile, the senator has described his suspension as unconstitutional and laughable. He said by the provisions of the Constitution, the State Working Committee has demonstrated complete undemocratic and anti-constitutional behavior, which has rendered their uncharitable pronunciation as null and void and of no consequence whatsoever. To legal matters, a Federal Capital Territory High Court has affirmed its earlier judgment sacking the state and local government executive councils of the People's Democratic Party in Anambra State. Ruling on an application seeking for the stay of execution of the judgments, Justice Olukayode Adeniyi held that it is contemptuous for the applicants who approached the court seeking equitable relief after disobeying the order of the court. Justice Adeniyi had on June the 9th sacked the Anambra State executives of the PDP in a suit filed by Mr. Samuel Anyokora. Mr. Anyokora claims that the PDP arbitrarily imposed state chairmen, executive members, local government chairmen and national delegates on members in its Southeast Zonal Congress of March 6, 2021. In part 2, after the break, court fixes July the 2nd to adopt all processes filed by parties in a suit by former Abia State Governor Orji Zukalu seeking to stop his retrial. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Senate moves to curb fraudulent transactions in federal government ministries, agencies and departments. Threatens to expose those refusing to account for public funds. Former Central Bank Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo emerges candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance in the November 6th governorship election in Anambra State. court fixes July 2nd to adopt all processes filed by parties in a suit by former Abia State Governor Ojuzo Kalu seeking to stop his retrial. And leaders of the 16-nation Southern African Development Community agreed to deploy troops to help Mozambique combat terrorism and violent extremism. The Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed July the 2nd for adoption of all processes filed by parties in a suit by former Abia State Governor Senator Ojuzo Kalu seeking to stop his retrial. Earlier in February, the court had granted Mr. Kalu leave to challenge the legality of the retrial. At the resumed hearing, counsel to the former governor, Professor Awa Kalu, told the court that the Senate Chief Whip had been tried, convicted and sentenced on the same charges by the court under Justice Mohammed Idris, and so he shouldn't be subjected to a fresh trial on the same charge.
The Federal High Court in Abuja resumed hearing in suit to stop the planned retrial of former Abia State Governor Senator Ojuzo Kalu. In his supporting affidavit, the Senate Whip chronicled the history of the trial from his first arraignment in 2016 and rearraignment in 2017 after the initial charges were amended by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. He argued that he had been convicted and sentenced in December 5, 2019 by Justice Mohammed Idris. The counsels admitted having filed and exchanged processes.
The matter is about whether, that's the civil one, whether the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is entitled to re-prosecute a man who has been to prison and out. That's the essence of, after 12 years of trial, you want to start afresh, to try him afresh. So that's what the quarrel is about.
In response to the suit, the EFCC argues that the retrial is in compliance with the order of the Supreme Court, which held that the whole trial was a nullity, having been conducted without jurisdiction.
Certainly, they know that it will not be double jeopardy for the defendants to be prosecuted again, because double jeopardy can only apply where the courts that actually prosecuted and convicted the defendants acted with jurisdiction. And the Supreme Court has said that the court did not act with jurisdiction because Honorable Justice Idris was elevated to the Court of Appeal. So, and they used that judgment. It was based on that Supreme Court judgment that they went to the Federal High Court in Lagos for the applicant, Ojuzo Kalu, to be released. So, they cannot be blowing hot and cold. If they said he should be released because the Supreme Court said the trial was a nullity, they cannot now say, oh, he was validly tried.
The senator who is representing Abia North is facing a 36-count charge bordering on alleged money laundering.
The federal government says the country is ready for the second peer review self-assessment report to be conducted by NEPAD. This was disclosed by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by the president today. Mr. Adesina said after discussions during council meeting, the president gave approval for the conduct of this review after a 10-year gap. He also told State House correspondents that the recent ECOWAS court ruling on suspension of Twitter is being reviewed by the Attorney General of the Federation.
Nigeria is ready for the second peer review country self-assessment report to be done by NEPAD. I think the last self-assessment report was done 10 years ago on Nigeria. Now Nigeria is ready for the second review, self-assessment report, and it's been discussed at the council, and the president has granted the approval that that peer review report can be conducted on Nigeria. Nigeria has made progress in several areas and on several fronts. The Attorney General of the Federation is going to study that report, and then he will advise government on the way forward. The committees set up by the president to engage with Twitter is actually holding a meeting about now, but it will hold a meeting this afternoon towards engaging with Twitter.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari received in audience the governors of Zamfara, Kebbi, Jigawa and Niger states at the presidential villa today. At the end of the meeting, Governor Bello Matawalle told State House correspondents that it is safe for farmers to return to their farms as the security situation is gradually improving across the northern region. He explains that security agencies have adopted new security architecture for the region and it is already yielding results. According to him, the president has assured the governors that he is taking measures to address the situation.
For the first 4 days, no incidents were recorded by the security. But yet we are doing our best, and the security are doing their best to make sure that they tackle all the challenges. But I assure you that we are on top of the matter, and the president has assured all of us that he is going to take more measures on the issue of insecurity of the northern part of the country. Before, in the first 4 months, we doesn't have much this crisis, but now it's gradually coming back. But the security are doing their best now, particularly on the new security architecture that were changed. Now we are having some improvement on the challenges. With the action that and the roadmap that we have drawn between the government and the security, we are doing our best to make sure that farmers will go back to their farms and they are going to farm, inshallah. We will do our best to make sure that all people will go back to their farms.
And we have more stories from Abuja studios. Here's Linda Kibe. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. The Minister of Niger Delta, Godswill Akpabio, has revealed that the President will receive the report of the ongoing forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission next month. Mr. Akpabio indicated this while responding to questions from State House correspondents after a meeting with the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, at the State House. He maintains that the exercise is not only to clean up the mess in the NDDC, but to reposition the Commission and ensure optimal performance. The minister further declared that Nigeria cannot afford a crisis in the South-South as recorded in other regions of the country because of its importance to the economic survival of the nation.
So the field forensic audit is on course and it's progressing very well. And I'm happy with the progress made so far. And I'm very certain that by come end of July, which is just a month and a few weeks away, that the final results will be given to Mr. President for implementation. And in terms of the composition of the board of the NDDC, that of course we have fast-tracked the process, and you will soon, the National Assembly will soon get the list. And also we cannot afford to have particularly the South-South region of the Niger Delta going into crisis like what we're witnessing in the Southeast and all that. And I think the example I set is what is being emulated now in the Southeast, that there is need for those of us in government to go back home to interact with the grassroots and then explain things to them so that we can stop the restiveness that we are witnessing in many zones in the country. So my going to the creeks to meet with the traditional fathers and all, I can tell you we don't have militants any longer because of amnesty program. So you can say ex-agitators, was in the interest of not just the security of the region, but also the peace of the region, and by implication to ensure that critical infrastructure that can affect the economy of the country were maintained and were not tampered with.
The Arewa Consultative Forum has commended governors of the Southeast Zone and their leaders for standing up to disown the violent activities of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra IPOB and the Eastern Security Network ESN. At its National Executive Council meeting in Kaduna State, chaired by the former Minister of Agriculture, Chief Aldu Ogbe, The forum says it will soon meet with leaders of Ohanes and Dibo, Afenifere and South-South leaders to collaborate and discuss the lingering issues in the country which have tended to pitch ethnic and religious and regional groups against one another.
Their appeal that we should protect their citizens in the north will definitely not fall on deaf ears. We will protect them. But we urge them to take steps to protect our own citizens in their domain. We receive reports quite constantly of killings of some men and women who are into very minor businesses like even suya sellers on the streets getting killed. We want to assure them we will not relent in our effort to make sure that every Nigerian everywhere in the country is safe and protected as far as we have the capacity to do so. In the near future, the ACF intends to invite the major cultural groups in different parts of the country, in the east, the west, and the south-south, to a national dialogue in Abuja. We think that such a dialogue will help to send the signal, the correct signal to Nigerians that in spite of the challenges we face, war is not a solution. We want to ask all Nigerians, even those who fan the embers of violence, that should war start here, not many of us will know where to go as refugees. Even the rich. We also wish to warn that those who make the loudest noise about violence and civil war will not be here when the war starts. They'll be in hotels in London and the US and Paris collecting dividends on behalf of the dead. We have seen it before, and Nigerians should be wary of them.
When the news at 10 returns, African Development Bank launches debt action and economic governance plan to forestall debt crisis for African economies. That's in Business News. Join us again. You're welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. A coalition of civil society organizations led by the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, YAGA, has petitioned the Senate President, Senator Ahmed Lawan, and the Senate Committee on INEC to reject the nomination of Mrs. Loretta Onochie as National Commissioner. The group insists that the nominee does not meet the constitutional requirements for the position. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, YAGA's Senior Program Officer, Yetunde Bakari, notes that the rejection of Mrs. Loretta Onochie's nomination is based on the fact that the nominee is a card-carrying member of the ruling party, a British citizen, and a political card-carrying member of the British Conservative Party. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has restated his desire to develop rural communities in the state to ensure all residents are safe and comfortable in their communities. Governor Wike stated this during the flag-off of the reclamation of over 1,000 plots of land for 2 coastal communities in Akukutoru local government area performed by the former president of the Senate, Adolphus Nwabara. He says the initiative would also help the state government decongest Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital.
The urban renewal and rural regeneration agenda of the Rivers State government is witnessing new strides. Governor Nyesom Wike again leads his entourage to the coastal local government area of Akukutoru to flag off the reclamation of over 1,000 plots of land from this swampy area for the people of Abonima and Obonoma communities. A gesture the people consider worthy of commendation.
We've had Unveiled contracts stretching about 20 years now, and as you can see, there isn't even a drop of sand anywhere. Therefore, you can understand our excitement at this very positive sign that finally the Unveiled project, which you promised about 2 months ago, is now coming to fruition.
For Governor Wike, the project is part of his agenda to create a new river state where residents will be comfortable in their ancestral homes.
Here, land reclamation is very, very important. Very, very important. Because if you are coming to this place, special guest of honor, you will know it's totally water. Totally water. And the only way they can build is for you to reclaim land.
Having spent his second day in the state, the special guest and former president of the Senate commends Governor Wike for his people-oriented projects.
The interesting thing about you, sir, is that you cite projects not for citing's sake. You cite projects in this state according to needs.
He then flags off the project. This project, which is expected to be completed in less than a year, will no doubt expand access to the benefiting communities surrounded by water.
And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Linda. And back to our earlier story, the INEC recognized leadership of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, led by Chief Victor Oye. He has been reacting to the purported suspension of Professor Charles Soludo and 3 others from the party. Chief Oye says the party is not in any crisis and the moves is an antic by detractors who know that ABGA is the party to beat.
There is no faction in ABGA. Let me make it clear to you that there is only one subsisting judgment of the National Convention of ABGA held on the 31st of May 2019. And that was the judgment by Justice C.C. Oka of the Anambra State High Court, Oka Judicial Division, in which the judge expressly validated the Congresses and National Convention of ABGA held on May 31, 2019. And INEC also monitored that convention and produced a report. That report is still with INEC. Nothing has invalidated it up till date. And now, the Court of Appeal on Ibadan Division gave a judgment which is stated clearly that in accordance with Articles 12 and Articles 12 and 20 of the Constitution of ABGA 2019, only the National Convention of the party can remove the national chairman. That is law. NEC, of which Jude Okeke is purportedly to have led and produced it, cannot remove the national chairman or a national officer of the party. Only the National Convention that elected me and them, which is the national officers of the party, can remove us.
And to other stories, Alpha Meat Group has unveiled a modular healthcare facility at Bagada General Hospital in Lagos. The modular healthcare facility is equipped with diagnostics facilities, clinical laboratories facilities, equipped with a solar system, and it can be moved from one part of town to another.
Everyone here have been invited by Alpha Meat Group to witness something innovative, novel, and sure promises to advance healthcare delivery in Nigeria. From facilities management solution provider, where it started, which included physical environment like hospitals, Alpha Mead is now providing healthcare services with the launch of a modular healthcare facility, a customized mobility-enhanced prefabricated porta cabin with detachable modules equipped with the state-of-the-art clinical and diagnostic equipment.
Situation where somebody has not been diagnosed early enough, the situation has escalated because there's no closeness of medical facility. He has to leave Badagry to come to Bagada General Hospital. That's a hell of a distance. You will see how this has solved that problem.
It gives access to specialists in other continents and will make health affordable and accessible to the people. Because it is modular, you can move from one city center to the rural area. The federal government also attests to this initiative.
Alphabet Healthcare Management System Limited initiative have appropriately captured this SDG Goal 9, SDG Sustainable Development Goal 9, which aims at build resilient infrastructure, promote industrialization, and foster innovation across sectors.
And here is what it looks like. From the books, Nigeria loses $1 billion to medical tourism and records 42.8% prevalence of medical errors. This modular health facility with 4 different variants will solve these challenges.
In the teleconsult room, you have a doctor who is remote. Could be in Botswana, could be in Australia, could be in Cairo or Cape Town, in United States. The doctor comes on the screen. The patient sees the doctor's live. They converse, patient explain what our problems are, and the doctor can give advice.
It is equipped. It's got a consultation room. It's got an ultrasound. It's got an X-ray machine, and there's room for MRI if you want to expand it to a secondary or tertiary facility. This is a primary health care sort of module.
Government, schools, individuals, and organizations can own one of these, or invest, donate, partner Alpha Mead Healthcare Services Limited for any of the modular facility.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Let's begin business news with the African Development Bank starting its 3-day annual meeting with the theme Building Resilient Economies in Post-COVID-19 Africa. Highlights of discussions at the virtual meeting, which was headed by its president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, include challenges to economies and livelihoods of African countries, solutions to address the COVID-19 vaccine shortage, climate change, debt, and other issues. The AFDB president mentioned that African economies are on the path of recovery, with an average projected growth in gross domestic product of 3.4 this year, as COVID-19 lockdown are being lifted, restrictions eased, and even businesses already reopening. There is need for government to deepen financial inclusion and increase investments in the social service sector and create friendly policies that will attract foreign investment and further boost Nigeria's economy. These are some of the recommendations made by participants at the virtual meeting hosted by the Intelligence and Analysis Unit of international weekly newspaper, The Economist. The event tagged focused on the state of the country's economy, ways to return to the growth trajectory, and factors required to drive financial inclusion. The president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Toki Maboguje, also who was the key speaker at the meeting, highlighted the importance of small and medium enterprises sector to the nation's economy. While listing some of the benefits and challenges of Africa's Continental Free Trade Agreement, the president of the LCCI also said that galvanizing Nigeria's private sector remains a critical factor for growth to its economy. And talking about financial inclusion, one of Nigeria's non-interest financial institutions, Jaiz Bank Nigeria PLC, has declared 3 kobo dividend per share to shareholders with a promise to improve in the years ahead. The bank also released its financial statements for the year ending 2020, which showed that the bank recorded an asset growth of 40%, deposit growth of 38%, liquidity growth of 28%, and capital adequacy of 22%, profit after tax of 19%. The financial statements were given at the bank's annual general meeting, which was held in Abuja.
Thank you very much.
Jaiz Bank is holding its 9th annual general meeting. The meeting is coming on the heels of the economic devastation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. For the year ending 2020, the bank recorded a total asset of 233.6 billion naira,
an equity of 17.9 billion naira, and a profit after tax of 2.9 billion naira, representing a total asset growth of 40%, deposit growth of 38%, and profit after tax of 19%.
The bank statement of financial position and statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income are in agreement with the books of account. Compliance with Section 27, subsection 2 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 and Central Bank of Nigeria Circular 2014.
Despite the pandemic, the bank declares 3 kobo dividend per share, and with the new board in place, the management assures the shareholders of a brighter future.
Our profitability for 2020 is 45% more than what we did in 2019. I believe that this is a process that we are experiencing growth, and so the dividend will, once we grow the profitability and we continue to do this year on year, the dividend will also be increased.
A number of steps have been taken to improve on efficiency so that at the end of the year, I think there will be more money for shareholders, God willing.
Shareholders are excited for the growth plans and proud of the bank sticking to its principles.
We thank God for returning into profitability. Last year we did a profit of 2.4 billion. This year we make a profit of 2.9 billion.
With a pandemic and so on like that, for a bank to pay you dividend, I think we are very happy with that. And a bank that have started last year and continue this year, we are hopeful that they will continue paying that dividend in the future.
Jai's Bank is Nigeria's premier non-interest bank, and the management is planning to increase its customer base by opening more branches and introducing more customer-friendly products.
The stock market is again in the red. It closed midweek trading session down by a slight margin, while the total volume of shares transacted today dropped by 4.5%. Ini John Mekwa has the details.
Hello and welcome to the stock market report. Well, it's a persisting negative sentiment at the Nigeria Exchange Group this week as the bear continues to roll for the third session. Thankfully, the loss is not as much as Tuesday's, as the all-share index shaved up 0.11%, leaving it at 37,804.46 points. That's about 22 billion naira loss recorded at the equities market today alone. Now, let's see who drove the market down today. The major suspect here is the banking counter, down 0.75%. Access, Zenith, and Ethiopian Holdings drove the loss. Insurance was also down today, 0.51%. Only the consumer goods was up 0.16%. The equities cap is still within the 19 trillion naira mark, with over 208 million volume in a much lower deal than yesterday. Almost all the gains of June is being eroded here, but let's not give up. 2 more sessions for this week and things might just look up. That's the stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
All those mixed numbers will end the midweek edition of Business News. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawodu. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, leaders of the 16-nation Southern African Development Community agreed to deploy troops to help Mozambique combat terrorism and violent extremism. There's other international news from our studio in London. Please stay with us. Antivirus software pioneer John McAfee has died. He was found dead in his jail cell in Spain today, shortly after a court approved his extradition to the U.S., where he was wanted for tax evasion. The 75-year-old was found dead in his cell in the Bryans II Penitentiary near Barcelona. The spokeswoman for the prison system in the northeastern Catalonia region said it may have been suicide. We'll hear Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Britain has denied Russian reports that its military fired warning shots at a UK destroyer in the Black Sea. Moscow's defense ministry said the HMS Defender, seen here sailing off the coast of Istanbul in Turkey earlier this month, entered Russian waters near Crimea, forcing a patrol ship to fire warning shots. But Britain's Ministry of Defence said no warning shots had been fired at HMS Defender. It added that the ship was sailing in Ukrainian waters. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has marked the 5th anniversary of the country's Brexit referendum while addressing lawmakers in Parliament.
It has given us the freedom to establish 8 free ports across the country, driving new investment, to develop the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, to protect and invest in jobs and renewal across every part of the UK, to control our immigration system, and to sign a historic trade deal with Australia. It will allow us to shape a better future for our people.
Britain's exit concluded on December 31st, 2020, just days after it clinched a trade deal with the European Union. However, difficulties with that deal, particularly surrounding a hard border in Northern Ireland, remain. The Office of Budget Responsibility says issues caused by Brexit have lowered Britain's GDP by 0.5% in the first quarter of the year. Hong Kong's largest pro-democracy newspaper, the Apple Daily, has announced its closure in what's considered to be a major blow to media freedoms in the city. The paper's management said that in view of staff members' safety, it had decided to cease operation immediately after midnight, making Thursday's publication the final edition. The publication's offices were raided last week over allegations that several reports had breached a controversial national security law. Company-linked assets worth $2.3 million were frozen, and police also detained its chief editor and 5 other executives. India has classified a new variant of the coronavirus, first identified in Europe, as a variant of concern. India's health ministry says studies showed that the so-called Delta Plus variant spreads more easily. It's been found in 9 other countries outside India so far. It is related to the Delta variant, which was first identified in India last year. Dozens of people have reportedly been killed or injured after Ethiopia's Air Force bombed a market in the northern region of Tigre. The Ethiopian military denied targeting civilians, saying it carried out the strikes to neutralize terrorists. Tigrayan rebel forces are said to have made advances in recent days. Thousands of people have been killed so far and millions displaced after conflict erupted almost 8 months ago. Communities in Madagascar are on the verge of starvation, with women and children walking for hours to reach food. That's according to the World Food Programme. It's after the worst drought in 4 decades devastated the south of the island. According to the WFP, acute malnutrition has almost doubled over the last 4 months, with more than a quarter of people suffering in one area. The leader of Spain's opposition People's Party has called on Pedro Sanchez to resign a day after the government pardoned 9 jailed Catalan independence leaders. Separatist leaders, jailed over their role in the failed 2017 bid for independence, walked out of prison to cheers on Wednesday after the central government granted them pardons. Opposition parties have said they will challenge the pardons in court, arguing that they would give new strength to the separatist movement. Former presidential candidate Andrew Yang has dropped out of the race to become the Democratic candidate for New York mayor after coming 4th in the primary election.
What a beautiful night in New York City, everyone.
Mr. Yang, a tech entrepreneur who attracted a devoted following during his bid to be the Democratic presidential candidate in the 2020 election, had been the front runner to become the party's New York candidate, but he conceded after early results put him in a distant 4th place. And finally, swapping the towering skyline of New York for the grounds of the Vatican, Spider-Man has joined Pope Francis for his weekly general audience.
Di presentarsi in alcune occasioni come gli unici possessori della verità.
Sat among the socially distant faithful, a person dressed in the famous red and blue costume was seen listening to the pontiff's message. Spider-Man then gave Pope Francis his very own mask as the 2 famous figures greeted each other at the end of the weekly audience. The man behind the mask says he was allowed to meet the Pope because of his work dressing up in costumes to cheer up sick children. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. In the European Championships, Cristiano Ronaldo has scored his 109th goal for Portugal to equal Iran striker's Ali Daei all-time international record as the reigning champions progressed to the last 16 after a 2-2 draw with world champions France. Germany came from behind twice against Hungary to reach the knockout stage. Spain earned their first win in style as they thrashed Slovakia to progress to the last 16. And Tokyo has marked 1 month until the start of the Olympics, with organizers setting out measures they hope will allow a safe event to be held amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The organizing committee released safety guidelines for ticket holders, including banning loud cheering, the giving of high fives and towel waving, in addition to prohibiting the sale of alcoholic beverages in venues. And that's sports news.
And the main news again, the Senate today moved to curb fraudulent transactions in federal government ministries, agencies and departments. The lawmakers also threatened to expose those refusing to account for public funds. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay safe.